The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated quietly in the empty space between star systems. It was built like a giant wheel, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. This was the meeting place of the Galactic Council, where representatives from 13 different alien species came together to make decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the long corridors of the station. Her footsteps echoed off the metal walls as she made her way to the main council chamber. She had been Earth's representative for 3 years now, and she knew these halls well. The other species had been here much longer. Some had been part of the council for thousands of years. Sarah entered the large circular room where the council met. 13 seats were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Her own seat was simple compared to the others. The humans were the newest members of the council, having joined only 50 years ago when they finally developed faster-than-light travel. The other ambassadors were already in their places. The most important seat belonged to Speaker Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin humanoids with blue skin and 4 arms. They had been the dominant power in this part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Their technology was advanced, their military was strong, and they controlled the most trade routes. Next to Veltar sat Ambassador Crix of the Altarian Defense Force. The Altarians were built like giant insects, with hard shells and multiple eyes. They served as the Council's military leaders. On the other side were the Morans, who looked like floating jellyfish in special water suits. They handled most of the Council's medical and scientific work. Sarah took her seat and looked around the room. She had called for today's meeting to discuss the human colonies in the Outer Rim. For the past 2 years, human ships had been exploring and settling in that region of space. They had found several planets perfect for human life and had started building cities there. According to the treaties humans had signed when joining the Council, these colonies were legal and protected. Speaker Veltar activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing all the star systems and trade routes. Red dots marked the locations of human colonies in the Outer Rim. "We are here today to discuss the human presence in the Outer Rim territories," Veltar said. His voice had a musical quality that made it sound like he was singing instead of talking. "The Zephyrian Empire has submitted a proposal for industrial development in this region." Sarah stood up. "Speaker Veltar, those territories are already occupied by human colonies. We have mining operations, research stations, and 3 major settlements with over 1 million people each. Any industrial development would need to work around our existing presence there." Veltar's 4 arms moved in a gesture that Sarah had learned meant dismissal among his people. "Ambassador Chen, the Council has reviewed your colonization efforts. While we appreciate human enthusiasm, we must consider the greater good of all Council members. The Zephyrian proposal would bring much more benefit to the galaxy as a whole." "What kind of benefit?" Sarah asked. She tried to keep her voice calm and professional. "The Zephyrians plan to build automated mining stations that would extract rare minerals needed for advanced technology," said Ambassador Thek of the Bricks Collective. The bricks looked like large mushrooms and communicated through chemical signals that were translated by their suits. "These minerals are essential for our medical equipment and faster-than-light engines." Sarah pulled out her datapad and activated. "Our geological surveys show that we can extract the same minerals without destroying the existing colonies. Human mining technology is very efficient. We can get what you need while keeping our settlements safe." "Human mining technology," repeated Ambassador Yis of the Slani Trade Federation. The Slani looked like large snakes with arms and had control over many of the galaxy's shipping routes. "How advanced can it really be? Your species has only had spaceflight for a few hundred years." Several of the other ambassadors made sounds that Sarah recognized as laughter in their various languages. She felt her face get hot with anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Our technology may be newer, but it's very effective," she said. "We've increased mineral output by 40% in the regions where we've started operations." "Speaker," Veltar looked at the other council members. "The council appreciates human efforts, but we must be realistic about capabilities. The Zephyrian Empire has been mining asteroids and planets for thousands of years. Their experience and technology are far superior to anything humans could offer. Then let us prove it, Sarah said. Give us 6 months to show you what we can do. If our output doesn't match Zephyrian projections, we'll discuss relocation. Relocation? Veltar's tone became sharper. Ambassador Chen, I think you misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. The Council has voted to approve the Zephyrian proposal. Your colonies will need to move to make room for the industrial complex. Sarah felt like she had been hit in the stomach. You voted without us? The vote was 11-1 with 1 abstention, Veltar explained. Only the Cathian Mining Consortium voted against the proposal, and they abstained from the final count. Sarah looked around the room. These beings had just decided to uproot 3 million human lives without even asking for human input. They had made their decision in advance and only called this meeting to inform her of it. Where are we supposed to move 3 million people? She asked. There are suitable planets in the inner systems, said Ambassador Dulm of the Hegemony states. The Hegemony members looked like gray humanoids with large heads. They are closer to the main trade routes anyway, much more convenient for a developing species. Those planets are already overcrowded, Sarah replied, and the environmental conditions are barely suitable for human life. You're asking us to move our people to worlds where they'll struggle to survive. All developing species face such challenges, Veltar said. His tone suggested that the discussion was over. It builds character and promotes growth. The Zephyrian Empire faced similar hardships in our early days. Your early days were 10,000 years ago, Sarah pointed out. Exactly, which is why we are qualified to guide younger species through these difficulties. Sarah stood up slowly. Around the room, she could see the expressions on the alien faces. Some looked bored, as if this was just routine business. Others seemed amused by her objections. A few looked sympathetic but said nothing. This was how it always went. The older, more established species made decisions, and the newer members were expected to accept them without question. Humans were supposed to be grateful for being included at all. I need to contact my government before agreeing to anything, Sarah said. Of course, Veltar replied. You have 48 hours to begin evacuation procedures. The Zephyrian construction fleets will arrive in the Outer Rim in 1 week. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. She had spent 3 years trying to work within this system, believing that patience and diplomacy would eventually earn humanity respect and equal treatment. Instead, she had watched as human proposals were dismissed, human concerns were ignored, and human lives were treated as minor inconveniences. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. Inside was a document she had hoped never to use. Speaker Veltar, she said, her voice now completely calm. I have been authorized by the President of the Terran Federation to deliver this message in the event that the Council proved unable to treat humanity as an equal partner. She opened the envelope and read from the paper inside. The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts are terminated. Human space is now closed to all Council member species. The room fell silent. Sarah could hear the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. Ambassador Chen, Veltar said slowly. Surely you don't mean to end 50 years of cooperation over a simple administrative decision? Sarah put the paper back in the envelope and tucked it into her jacket. Speaker Veltar, she said, humanity has learned what we needed to know about galactic civilization. We will take it from here. She turned and walked toward the door. Behind her, she could hear the aliens talking rapidly in their various languages, but she didn't look back. The age of human diplomacy with the Galactic Council was over. 3 months had passed since Ambassador Sarah Chen walked out of the council chamber. At first, the other species thought the humans were just angry and would calm down after a few weeks. They expected desperate messages asking to return to the council. Instead, they got complete silence. Speaker Veltar stood in his private office aboard Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars through a large window. His forearms moved restlessly as he read the latest reports from across the galaxy. The news was not good. The humans have stopped answering our communications, reported his aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kesistar. All attempts to contact their colonies, ships, or government have been ignored. They're being childish, Veltar said. They'll realize they need us soon enough. But even as he said it, Veltar felt uncertain. The humans had been surprisingly calm about leaving. Most species would have threatened war or at least demanded another meeting. The humans had simply disappeared. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Irim of the Moran Confederacy was dealing with a crisis. The Morans lived underwater and needed special medical equipment to survive in the artificial environments of space stations and alien worlds. For 30 years, they had been buying this equipment from human manufacturers. "How many days of medicine do we have left?" Irim asked her medical officer. 2 weeks at most, the officer replied. "We've tried contacting other suppliers, but their technology isn't compatible with our biology. Human-made equipment was specifically designed for our body chemistry. And the humans? They returned our payment and canceled all contracts. They said their company no longer does business with council member species." Irim felt panic rising in her chest. Without the proper medical support, Morans couldn't work in space or visit other worlds. Their entire role in the galactic community depended on human technology. Similar problems were appearing everywhere. The Keith mining operations had lost their human engineering consultants overnight. These engineers had been working on dangerous projects deep inside asteroids and gas giant atmospheres. Without human expertise, several mining platforms had already been shut down for safety reasons. The Slani Trade Federation was facing an even bigger problem. Human shipping companies had handled 40% of all cargo movement between star systems. They had efficient routes, reliable schedules, and reasonable prices. Now all human ships had simply vanished from the shipping lanes. Captain Jessica of the Slani merchant fleet was trying to reorganize cargo deliveries without human help. Her navigation computer showed dozens of routes that now took twice as long because they had to avoid human-controlled space. "What do you mean we can't use the Proxima shortcut?" she asked her navigator. "The humans control that route," the navigator explained. "They're not attacking ships that enter their space, but they're not providing navigation assistance either. 3 Altarian freighters got lost trying to use the shortcut last week. They're still missing. Can't we just follow the route markers?" The B. Humans removed all the markers when they left the council. The shortcut goes through an asteroid field that changes constantly. Without human traffic control, it's too dangerous. The most disturbing reports came from the Altarian Defense Force. For 50 years, human ships had responded to distress calls from any species in trouble. Human rescue teams were known throughout the galaxy for their skill and willingness to help. Now they ignored emergency signals completely. Admiral Koresh received a report that made him very uncomfortable. "Sir, the merchant vessel Star of Altair sent a distress signal yesterday after engine failure near the Vega system. A human patrol ship was only 2 hours away." Did they respond? They acknowledged the signal, confirmed they had received it, and continued on their course. The Star of Altair was rescued 18 hours later by one of our ships. Admiral Koresh had served in the military for 40 years. He understood that politics could affect military cooperation, but he had never seen any species ignore a genuine emergency call. It went against every tradition of space travel. "Are you certain the human ship received the distress call correctly?" "Yes, sir. They sent a message saying, 'Distress signal acknowledged. Contact Altarian Defense Force for assistance.' Then they shut off communications." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. This wasn't anger or politics. This was something else entirely. Meanwhile, strange reports were coming from the edges of known space. Human exploration ships had always shared their discoveries with the Council's scientific community. They would find new planets, map unknown star systems, and send detailed reports to everyone. This information was valuable for trade, colonization, and scientific research. Dr. Yin, the Council's chief xenobiologist, was studying the latest intelligence reports. "The humans are still exploring," she told her research team. "Our long-range sensors detect human ships in at least 12 new star systems, but they're not sharing any data." Maybe they just haven't finished their surveys yet, suggested one of her assistants. It's been 3 months, Dr. Yin replied. Before they would send preliminary reports within days of discovering a new system. Now we get nothing. Are they hiding something? Dr. Yin looked at the star chart showing human ship movements. There was a pattern there, but she couldn't figure out what it meant. The humans seemed to be avoiding all contact with Council species, while expanding rapidly into unexplored regions. I think, she said slowly, they're building something. Back on Nexus Prime, Speaker Veltar was holding an emergency meeting with the other council leaders. The circular chamber felt different now with the empty human seat. It was a constant reminder of their first diplomatic failure in centuries. The economic impacts are becoming serious, reported Ambassador Thek of the BRICS Collective. Human, agricultural technology helped us increase food production by 60%. Without their bioengineering support, we're facing potential shortages. Surely we can develop our own alternatives, Veltar said. In time, yes. But it will take years to reach human efficiency levels, and we still don't understand how some of their technology works. Ambassador Crix of the Altarian Defense Force leaned forward in his chair. There's something else. Our intelligence division has been monitoring human communications. And they've gone completely dark. Not just to us. They've stopped using all the standard galactic communication networks. It's like they've developed their own private system. This was unusual. All spacefaring species used the same basic communication protocols. It allowed for emergency coordination and prevented accidents between ships from different worlds. For humans to abandon these systems meant they had found something better. How is that possible? Asked Ambassador Yis of the Slani. The galactic communication network took thousands of years to develop. You can't just replace it overnight. Apparently you can, Crix replied. Human ships are coordinating perfectly with each other, but we can't intercept or understand their signals. Speaker Veltar felt the first real worry he had experienced in decades. Are they planning something hostile? We don't know, Crix admitted. They're not making threats or building up military forces near our borders. They're just gone. The meeting continued for hours, but they reached no conclusions. The council had dealt with angry member species before, but this was different. Usually, angry species made demands, threatened to leave, or asked for better terms. The humans had simply vanished. As the other ambassadors filed out of the chamber, Speaker Veltar remained in his seat. He stared at the empty space where Ambassador Chen had sat for 3 years. He tried to remember their conversations, looking for clues about what the humans might be planning. The humans had always been polite during council meetings. They asked good questions and made reasonable suggestions. When their ideas were rejected, they accepted the decisions without argument. Veltar had assumed this meant they understood their place in the galactic order. Now he wondered if the humans had been studying them instead, learning how the council worked, understanding its weaknesses and planning for this moment. His personal communicator beeped. It was a message from the Zephyrian homeworld. Construction fleets report that human colonies in the Outer Rim are completely abandoned. All buildings, equipment, and infrastructure have been removed. It's like they were never there. Veltar stood up and walked to the window. Somewhere out there, 3 million humans had simply disappeared along with everything they had built. Ships, space stations, entire cities, all gone without a trace. For the first time in his long life, Speaker Veltar began to wonder if the Galactic Council had made a serious mistake. 6 months after the humans left the Council, Speaker Veltar received a message that made his blood run cold. Admiral Koresh was requesting an emergency session of the full Council. The message was marked with the highest priority code, something reserved for threats to galactic security. The Council chamber filled quickly as representatives hurried to their seats. Admiral Koresh stood at the center of the room next to a large holographic display. His insect-like face showed signs of stress that Veltar had never seen before. 3 days ago, Koresh began, our long-range scouts detected massive construction activity in the Outer Rim. What we found there defies explanation. The hologram activated, showing a detailed view of a star system that had been empty just months before. Now it was filled with enormous structures that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Massive shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers. Research stations the size of small moons orbited the central star, and surrounding it all was a network of defensive platforms that looked like nothing in any known database. "This is impossible," whispered Ambassador Thek. "Construction on this scale would take decades, even with our most advanced technology." "Our estimates suggest this entire complex was built in less than 4 months, Koresh replied. "We have surveillance data showing the construction progress. The humans worked faster than should be physically possible." Speaker Veltar studied the hologram carefully. The structures were clearly human in design, but they incorporated technologies he didn't recognize. The shipyards were producing vessels that looked more advanced than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. "How many ships are they building?" he asked. "Conservative estimates suggest they're completing 1 heavy cruiser every 6 hours, Koresh said. "At current production rates, they'll have a fleet larger than the entire Council Defense Force within 2 years. The chamber erupted in worried voices as the representatives discussed this news. Ambassador Yis of the Slani raised her hand for attention. "Admiral, are these ships designed for warfare?" "We believe so. They're heavily armed and shielded. But here's what really concerns us. The technology appears to be generations ahead of what humans showed us during their Council membership." Dr. Yin, the chief xenobiologist, requested permission to speak. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the data from our intelligence-gathering operations. I believe I know what happened." She activated her own display, showing a comparison between human technology from their Council days and what they were seeing now. During their 50 years in the Council, humans consistently presented themselves as a developing species. Their ships were functional, but not impressive. Their weapons were adequate, but not threatening. Their industrial capacity seemed limited, compared to ours. "Your point?" Veltar asked. "I believe they were deliberately limiting their technology displays. What we assumed was their maximum capability was actually just what they considered appropriate for galactic society." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Ambassador Crix leaned forward in his chair. "Are you suggesting the humans were pretending to be less advanced than they really were?" "Not pretending," Dr. Yin corrected. "I think they were being careful. Look at this data." Her display showed human behavior patterns during council meetings. Charts tracked their responses to various proposals and their voting patterns on different issues. Humans consistently supported proposals that would benefit younger species. They opposed measures that concentrated power among the older civilizations, and they always asked detailed questions about military capabilities and defensive strategies. They were studying us, Admiral Koresh realized. Exactly, but not for conquest. Look at their pattern of questions and concerns. They were trying to understand how galactic society worked, what its strengths and weaknesses were, and how power was distributed among different species. Speaker Veltar felt uncomfortable. What did they conclude? Dr. Yin's display showed a new chart analyzing council decision-making over the past 50 years. The data suggests they viewed our system as fundamentally unstable, too much power concentrated among too few species, with newer members treated as subordinates rather than equals. That's absurd, Veltar protested. The council has maintained peace for thousands of years. Has it? Dr. Yin asked. Or has it simply prevented smaller conflicts while building toward a larger one? She showed them a map of the galaxy with conflict zones marked in red. Over the past 50 years, tensions had been building between various council members. Trade disputes between the Slani and Bricks, territorial arguments between the Altarians and Mirans, resource competition between the Zephyrians and nearly everyone else. The humans may have concluded that our system was heading toward a major war, Dr. Yin continued, and they decided not to be part of it. Admiral Koresh added his own intelligence to the discussion. There's more. We've detected human ships making contact with non-council species throughout the galaxy. Species we classified as too primitive or uninteresting for membership. Which species? Veltar demanded. The Draken from the Perseus Arm, the Neo-Terrans, from the independent colonies, The collective from the Magellanic Clouds. Even some machine intelligences we've had minimal contact with. Machine intelligences? Ambassador Yes seemed shocked. Those beings are completely alien. They don't even have biological bodies. Apparently, the humans found ways to communicate with them. Our scouts report that several of these species are now displaying rapid technological advancement. Technologies that appear to be based on human designs. Speaker Veltar stood up abruptly. Are you telling me that humans are building an alternative galactic civilization? It appears so, Koresh confirmed. They're not just withdrawing from our society. They're creating a replacement for it. The implications hit everyone at once. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had been the dominant political force in their region of space. Other species either joined them or remained isolated on their homeworlds. The idea that someone could build a competing organization had never occurred to them. How many species are involved in this human alliance? Asked Ambassador Dulm. Current intelligence suggests over 200 species have made contact with human representatives, Koresh replied. At least 50 have signed formal agreements with them. 200 species? Veltar couldn't hide his shock. There are barely 50 species in Council space that we consider technologically advanced. The humans appear to have a different definition of advancement, Dr. Yin observed. They're working with species we dismissed as primitive, but these species are showing remarkable development under human guidance. Ambassador Thek raised a disturbing question. If humans can help primitive species advance so quickly, why didn't they help us advance? Dr. Yin looked uncomfortable. I believe they concluded that we didn't want to advance. We wanted to maintain our current positions of power. That's ridiculous, Veltar snapped. We're always working to improve our technologies and societies, are we? Dr. Yin challenged. When did we last accept a major change to council structure? When did we last adopt a new technology that shifted power between member species? When did we last invite a new species to join us? The questions hung in the air. Speaker Veltar realized that the council had been essentially unchanged for hundreds of years. They had perfected their system and stopped trying to improve it. The humans spent 50 years watching us, Dr. Yin continued. They saw a civilization that had stopped growing and started stagnating. They concluded that we were not the future of galactic society. Admiral Koresh activated a new display showing recent ship movements. There's something else. Human exploration fleets are moving toward the galactic core. They're making contact with civilizations we've never encountered. The core regions are too dangerous, protested Ambassador Crix. The radiation levels, the gravitational anomalies, the unknown species. We've always avoided that area. Apparently, humans don't consider it too dangerous. They're establishing trade routes and communication networks throughout regions we thought were impossible to explore. Speaker Veltar sank back into his chair. The humans weren't just leaving the council. They were proving that the council's limitations were self-imposed. They were showing that galactic civilization could be much larger, much more diverse, and much more advanced than anyone had imagined. What do we do? He asked quietly. Admiral Koresh looked around the room at the other representatives. I think, he said slowly, we need to consider the possibility that we are no longer the primary galactic civilization. We may have become a regional power while the humans build something much bigger. The words hit the council like a physical blow. For thousands of years they had been the center of their known universe. Now they were facing the reality that they might have become irrelevant. Outside the station, space looked the same as always. But somewhere out there, humanity was building a new kind of galactic society, and they were doing it without the council's permission, participation, or approval. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council was no longer in control of its own destiny. 1 year after humanity's departure from the Galactic Council, the consequences were becoming impossible to ignore. What had started as minor inconveniences had grown into a full crisis that threatened the stability of Council civilization. Ambassador Shirim of the Miran Confederacy floated in her water-filled chamber, reading the latest medical reports. The news was devastating. Without human-manufactured medical equipment, Moran colonies throughout the galaxy were failing. 3 major settlements had already been abandoned, and their populations relocated to the underwater cities of the Moran homeworld. "How long can we sustain current population levels?" she asked her chief medical officer. 6 months, maybe 8 if we strictly ration the remaining human medical supplies, came the reply. "After that, we'll have to withdraw from all off-world operations." The Mirans had been a spacefaring species for over 1,000 years. The thought of being confined to their homeworld was terrifying. But without the specialized life support systems that only humans knew how to build, they had no choice. Similar disasters were unfolding across Council space. The Slani Trade Federation was facing economic collapse as shipping routes became inefficient and dangerous without human logistics support. Travel times between systems had doubled, costs had tripled, and several major trade routes had been abandoned entirely. Captain Jessica was trying to salvage what remained of her shipping company. "We lost another freighter yesterday," she reported to her superiors. "Engine failure in the Centauri passage. Without human rescue services, the crew drifted for 6 days before we could reach them. How many ships have we lost this quarter?" 12. And that's just from our fleet. System-wide, we're losing about 50 ships per month to accidents that human rescue teams would have prevented. The Keth mining operations had shut down completely. Without human engineering expertise, the dangerous work of extracting minerals from gas giants and unstable asteroids had become impossible. 3 mining platforms had been destroyed in accidents, killing hundreds of workers, but the economic problems were only the beginning. The political situation was deteriorating rapidly. The BRICS Collective had discovered that their food production systems were failing without human agricultural technology. Crop yields were dropping every season, and their scientists couldn't figure out how to maintain the complex bioengineering that humans had implemented. Ambassador Thek was dealing with food riots on 2 BRICS worlds. "The population doesn't understand why we can't simply recreate human farming methods," he explained to an emergency council session. "They think we're incompetent." "Can't your scientists reverse engineer the human technology?" asked Speaker Veltar. "We've tried. The biological systems are incredibly complex, and they're designed to work with specific genetic modifications that humans made to our crops. Without understanding the complete process, any changes we make could destroy the entire food chain." Dr. Yin had been studying the problem for months. "The humans didn't just give us technology," she explained. "They integrated their systems so deeply into our infrastructure that removing them causes cascading failures." "Are you saying they did this deliberately?" Veltar demanded. "Not maliciously, no. But they built their contributions to be essential, rather than supplementary. We became dependent on human innovation without realizing it." The worst news came from Admiral Koresh. The Altarian Defense Force was reporting complete communications breakdown between different Council fleets. Human technical staff had maintained the computer networks that allowed different species to coordinate their military forces. Without them, the various fleets couldn't work together effectively. Last week, Zephyrian and Altarian squadrons nearly fired on each other during a routine patrol, Koresh reported. "Our identification systems are incompatible, and we don't have the human technicians who normally solve these problems." "How is that possible?" Veltar asked. "We've been working together for thousands of years." "Human programmers wrote most of the software that allowed our different computer systems to communicate. Without them, we're back to the same compatibility problems we had before humans joined the Council." The situation was becoming desperate, but Speaker Veltar refused to admit defeat. "We are ancient civilizations with thousands of years of experience. We cannot be dependent on a species that only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago." But, even as he said it, reports continued to arrive that proved otherwise. The hegemony states were facing civil unrest as their economy collapsed without human trade partners. The Neo-Centaurian Republic was requesting emergency food aid as their agricultural systems failed. 3 minor council species were threatening to withdraw and seek membership in whatever organization the humans were building. Dr. Yin presented the most disturbing analysis. "We're seeing a pattern that suggests the humans understood our weaknesses better than we did. Every system they helped us with was already a point of failure in our civilization. Explain, Veltar ordered. Take the Moran medical crisis. Morans had always struggled with life support in alien environments. Human technology solved this problem so completely that Moran stopped researching alternatives. Now they're more vulnerable than they were before. The same pattern applies to all of us, she continued. Slani navigation was becoming inefficient before humans improved it. Brick's agriculture was facing genetic diversity problems that human bioengineering temporarily solved. Altarian military coordination was breaking down before human computer systems fixed it. What are you suggesting? The humans may have been studying our civilization's weak points and providing solutions that would make us dependent on them. Not for conquest, but for leverage. Ambassador Crix made a disturbing observation. If that's true, then they've been planning this withdrawal for decades. They positioned themselves to be essential to our survival, then left when we failed to treat them as equals. The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just quit the council in anger. They had systematically ensured that their departure would cripple the entire organization. Meanwhile, intelligence reports about human activities were becoming more alarming. The alternative, galactic community they were building was growing rapidly. Over 300 species were now part of what was being called the Human Compact. These species were sharing technology, coordinating exploration efforts, and establishing trade networks that completely bypassed council space. The Draken have developed faster-than-light communications that don't rely on our relay networks, Admiral Koresh reported. The Neo-Terrans are building ships using construction techniques we don't understand. The machine intelligences are sharing computational resources that exceed our most powerful computers. How advanced is their technology becoming? Veltar asked. Unknown, but significantly ahead of ours in several areas. They're using energy sources we haven't identified, materials science that seems impossible, and coordination systems that work better than anything we've ever developed. Dr. Yin added her own disturbing findings. The species working with humans are advancing much faster than they ever did independently. It's as if humans know how to unlock the potential of different civilizations in ways we never discovered. Or, never bothered to discover, Admiral Koresh observed quietly. The truth was becoming clear. The Galactic Council had created a stable but stagnant civilization. They had maintained peace by preventing change and growth. The humans had offered a different model, one based on rapid advancement and cooperation between diverse species. There's more, Koresh continued. Human exploration fleets have made contact with civilizations in the galactic core that we thought were myths. Ancient species with technology that makes ours look primitive. And they're all joining the Human Compact. Speaker Veltar felt the foundation of his worldview cracking. Ancient species, more advanced than us? Much more advanced. Species that developed faster than light travel millions of years ago. They've been waiting in the galactic core for someone to approach them with the right attitude and capabilities. Why didn't they contact us? Dr. Yin answered quietly. Because we never tried to reach them. We assumed that our level of technology was as advanced as galactic civilization could become. The humans assumed it was just the beginning. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed this information. They had spent thousands of years believing they were the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Now they were learning that they were actually a small, isolated community that had cut itself off from the greater galaxy. What do we do now? Asked. Ambassador The. Speaker Veltar looked around the room at the other representatives. These beings had once controlled the destiny of dozens of star systems. Now they were struggling to keep their own civilizations functioning. I don't know, he admitted. Outside Nexus Prime, the galaxy continued to evolve. But for the first time, in thousands of years, that evolution was happening without the Galactic Council's involvement or approval. And somewhere in the growing network of the Human Compact, humanity was proving that galactic civilization could be something far greater than anyone in the Council had ever imagined. 18 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced the unthinkable. 3 member species had formally withdrawn to join the Human Compact. Two others were on the verge of collapse and could no longer participate in council activities. For the first time in over a millennium, the council was shrinking instead of growing. Speaker Veltar stood in his private quarters, staring at a communication device he had never thought he would need to use. It was a standard diplomatic transmitter, but he was preparing to send a message that would have been impossible to imagine 2 years ago. The Galactic Council was going to ask humanity for help. The decision had not come easily. It took 6 emergency sessions and heated debates that lasted for days. Some council members still believed they could solve their problems without human assistance. Others argued that approaching humanity would be a sign of weakness that would destroy the council's remaining authority. But the numbers didn't lie. Without human technology and expertise, council civilization was failing. Ships were breaking down, colonies were being abandoned, and entire star systems were requesting to leave council space and join the human compact instead. "Send the message," Veltar told his aide. The transmission went out on all frequencies, broadcasting across human space. The Galactic Council formally requests diplomatic contact with representatives of the Terran Federation and associated species. We wish to discuss mutual cooperation and the resolution of current difficulties between our civilizations. The response came faster than expected. Within 6 hours, a reply arrived. The human compact will receive a council diplomatic mission at the Kepler station in the Vega system. Ambassador Admiral Chen will represent humanity in these discussions. Veltar recognized the name. Admiral Chen was Sarah Chen's daughter, the woman who had walked out of the council chamber over a year ago. The irony was not lost on him. 3 days later, Veltar and a small delegation of council representatives arrived at Kepler Station. What they found there challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic civilization. The station was enormous, larger than Nexus Prime and clearly built using technology far beyond council capabilities. Ships from dozens of different species docked at its ports, but these weren't species the council recognized. Many appeared to be from the galactic core, with designs that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Inside the station, the diversity was overwhelming. The council delegation saw beings made of pure energy, talking with crystalline creatures that communicated through light patterns. Mechanical intelligences with bodies of living metal worked alongside biological species that defied classification, and everywhere humans moved among them with the easy confidence of natural diplomats. Admiral Chen met them in a conference room that overlooked the station's central hub. She was younger than her mother had been during her council service, but she carried herself with the same quiet authority that Veltar remembered. "Speaker Veltar," she said politely, "thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." The council delegation took their places around a table that could accommodate a dozen different types of alien physiology. Veltar noticed that the room's design incorporated elements from hundreds of different architectural styles, creating something that felt both alien and familiar to everyone present. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us," Veltar began, carefully. "The Council hopes we can find a way to restore positive relations between our civilizations." Admiral Chen studied him for a moment. "Speaker Veltar, let me be direct. The human compact has no interest in restoring the previous relationship. However, we are willing to discuss new arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" "Individual? Council worlds are welcome to apply for membership in the human compact. We evaluate each application based on the species' commitment to democratic governance, technological sharing, and species equality." Veltar felt as if the room had tilted. "You're asking us to abandon the council and join your organization instead?" "Not at all," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "We're offering council worlds the opportunity to participate in a larger galactic community. The choice is entirely yours. And if we refuse, then you continue as you are. The human compact will not interfere with council space or council decisions, but we also will not provide assistance, trade, or technological exchange." Ambassador Crix leaned forward. "Admiral Chen, our civilizations are facing serious problems without human technological support. Surely we can work together to solve These issues. We tried that for 50 years, Admiral Chen replied. The Council consistently treated humanity as a subordinate species whose contributions were taken for granted. We have no interest in returning to that arrangement, Dr. Yin spoke up. What would Council species need to do to join your compact? Admiral Chen activated a holographic display showing the human compact's governing structure. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Instead of a rigid hierarchy with older species in control, it was a dynamic network where decisions were made by shifting coalitions of species with relevant expertise. First, applicant species must demonstrate a commitment to equality among all member civilizations. No species is considered more advanced or more important than any other. Second, they must be willing to share their knowledge and technology freely with other compact members. Third, they must adopt democratic decision-making, processes that give every individual a voice in their society's governance. That's impossible, protested Ambassador Thek. The BRICS Collective operates through biological consensus. We can't change our entire social structure. We're not asking you to change your nature, Admiral Chen explained. We're asking you to ensure that every individual BRICS has the opportunity to participate in that consensus. The form of democracy can vary, but the principle of individual participation must be maintained. Veltar studied the holographic display showing compact governance. How do you make decisions with so many different species involved? Through expertise-based coalitions. When we need to decide about agricultural policy, farming civilizations take the lead. For military issues, species with defense experience guide the discussion. For exploration, the species with the best navigation and survey capabilities make recommendations. What role would humans play in these decisions? Admiral Chen smiled. Whatever role our expertise qualifies us for. Sometimes we lead, sometimes we follow, sometimes we observe. It depends on the issue at hand. The concept was revolutionary. Instead of permanent hierarchy based on age or military power, the human compact operated on dynamic leadership that changed based on competence and relevance. I have to ask, Veltar said quietly. Why didn't humanity propose this system when you were council members? We tried, in small ways. Every suggestion for reform was rejected. The council preferred its existing structure. So you built an alternative. We offered council species the opportunity to evolve. When you declined, we found species who were interested in growth and change. Admiral Koresh asked the question that was troubling everyone. How advanced has compact technology become? Admiral. Chen gestured toward the window overlooking the station's central hub. See for yourself. They watched as a ship unlike anything they had ever seen docked at the station. It appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that pulsed with internal light. Its size defied physics. It was larger than some small moons, but moved with the grace of a living creature. That vessel belongs to the architects, a civilization from the galactic core. They've been building ships like that for 10 million years. They joined the compact last month. 10 million years? Veltar could barely comprehend such a timescale. The galaxy is much older and more diverse than Council exploration ever discovered. There are civilizations that achieved faster than light. Travel before life on most of our worlds had developed beyond single-celled organisms. Why didn't they contact us? They tried. Your exploration fleets turned back whenever they encountered technology they couldn't understand. You defined the limits of Council space based on what you felt comfortable with, not what was actually possible to explore. Dr. Yin was studying the data Admiral Chen had provided. The compact includes over 800 species now. 837 as of yesterday. We're growing by an average of 3 new members per week. The numbers were staggering. In less than 2 years, humanity had built a galactic organization 6 times larger than the Council had become in thousands of years. What happens to the Council? Veltar asked. That's up to you. You can continue operating as you have, serving the species that choose to remain members. Or individual worlds can apply to join the compact while maintaining their council membership. Or you can formally dissolve the council and have all member species apply for compact membership individually. And if we refuse all of these options, Admiral Chen's expression became serious. Then you continue to decline. Speaker Veltar, the Council's model of galactic civilization has reached its limits. You can adapt and grow, or you can maintain your current path and become increasingly irrelevant. The meeting continued for several more hours, with the Council delegation asking detailed questions about compact membership requirements and procedures.